Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
This is your time. This is your call to arms. For the Cryptid Connection is your voice. I'm your host, Jennifer.
And I'm your host, Stephen. Welcome to Cryptid Connection.
The Cryptid Connection podcast is brought to you by CryptidConnection.com, a website dedicated to you, one who has interest in all things cryptid and paranormal. CC is a place where you can enjoy a hassle-free lifestyle and community of Bigfoot pursuit. All our podcast guests are members of the website. Stop by via the internet and visit. Guarantee you will start to feel at home. CryptidConnection.com.
Hey, everybody. We had a hell of a last 2 weeks. I want to apologize for missing the show last week. We went on family vacation. We were going to try to do a live show while we were out in the woods. That actually just did not work out for many reasons. When we got back into town last weekend, we were catching up our own professional stuff. And then on Tuesday, the website crashed. Just went down. The host had a kind of a minor hiccup, and it took them about 24 hours to actually get it restored. We weren't fully up and operating and having the damage repaired until probably Thursday. It's up and running now. Actually, it's running better than it has ever been. I'm very happy with it now, so I think that the pain is probably worth it. I want to invite everybody to come on out. Join the community. Take a look at CryptidConnection.com. We're going to continue with our part 2 of the interview of Jeff Stewart. This interview actually takes a couple of unexpected turns. You're going to notice about halfway into this part that it seems like we're about to wrap up the interview. We thought we were. And then he's just one of those people that decides to keep on giving. And so because of that, we have an aborted ending and we just keep going with the episode for another 30 minutes or so. Y'all sit back, get some popcorn, enjoy. If you're driving, try not to have a wreck. Alrighty, let's go. I've noticed things just over the years from people, from shows coming on Saskron, and where people might come up with a new way of describing something, and then lo and behold, over the next year, that becomes a common phrase, and it's happened several times. The one I'm always thinking of is that the eerie walking on all fours like a spider. They call it that spider crawl. And have you ever heard or seen evidence of these animals going on all fours, first off?
I have, in my own eyewitness accounts, I did not see one on all fours. But whenever one of the creatures I've seen very up close ran from me, it did run very low to the ground, and it did use its arms to reach down, grab, and help propel itself through the brush. So I won't say it was running on all fours, but it did use its upper limbs to propel itself through the brush.
Now, when you're saying it was propelling itself from the brush, was it like hunched over? Was it like running in a crouch and it had its arms out front helping it? Or, I guess I'm trying to understand primarily, because without it being actually running on all fours, I'm thinking it would have to be a crouch.
It was more of a crouch, and it was stretched, more running leaned forward than crouched down at the knee or the waist. It was leaned forward. And we have to imagine, if you've ever been in East Texas and you've been in the brush, how thick, they call it the big thicket for a reason.
It is.
So you're not going to run upright through this stuff. You'll be trapped like you were caught in a net. So you've almost got to do what I call knifing yourself through this stuff. So you're going to have to lean forward, kind of make yourself as aerodynamic as possible to go through that brush. And that's what I witnessed, was a creature down closer to the ground, leaned forward, and reaching out with its arms to pull itself through the brush.
Yeah, you're right about a lot of people not understanding, especially in East Texas. I know, I guess it was about 2 months now, we were in Mineola, outside of Mineola. And on a couple of our hikes, you had to crawl. We actually had to crawl under a lot of that brush to get on because, we were off trail and it was a solid wall. And the only place that it cleared up at all was down towards the ground. And so there were several times just to get through, we had to get down.
Imagine if
makes
you
sense.
were twice your size.
Yeah,
Imagine if you were a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier trying to go through that brush. How much more difficult it would have been with longer hair, even if the hair is sparse. Long hair getting caught in the briars, getting caught in the yopons, getting caught in the vines. There's just a plethora of types of thorny vegetation that grow in the East Texas underbrush. And if you had longer hair on your body, it would be getting ripped out by the handful. And we would be able to walk into any thicket and, oh, look, here's a clump of hair. Here's another clump of hair. Well, guess what? There's blood on this one because it got ripped out by the roots, or these briars ripped flesh. If you don't have a way to go through that has been honed over a millennia of teaching your offspring and all that kind of stuff, this is how you go through the brush. I mean, I know my own father had to teach me as a child when we were in the woods hunting, this is how you go through the brush. I didn't just know it. I had to be taught, or else I would be tangled up and crying and hollering, help me.
You mentioned earlier that this references back to what you were saying earlier in the show. You were talking about how you had a problem with people saying that they saw something that looked like a gorilla and it was absolutely just had a full coat of fur on it. That, I think, bears in mind what we were just speaking about, because you're talking about a sparsely hair-covered animal. If you see the hair on it, you're also seeing past the hair. You can see the skin. And some areas may be hairier than others, but it's not a uniform type coat in any way. Am I correct about that?
Right. I hear people and I listen to people and they write to me and all of these things that, it could be August, July, whatever, here in Texas or anywhere in the South. And, we have 90-some-odd% humidity on a daily basis and temperatures 95 to 110 degrees. There's not an animal in the animal kingdom that does not shed its fur in the summertime. Coyotes, bears, even your household dogs and things shed for hot weather and put on a thick coat in the winter. If you could imagine what it would be like if you put on a pair of coveralls, insulated coveralls, in the summer heat in Texas, and you went out and tried to gather food for your family, whether that be vegetation or whether that be hunting another animal, you wouldn't last very long.
No,
so when people tell me, I saw one last week and this thing was this tall and weighed this much and it was covered in thick fur from head to toe, I have to discount it, because the precedent in the animal kingdom is, and from my own personal sightings, that in these hot months, their fur is much thinner. And from what I saw, you could very easily see through the fur to the skin.
Jeff, do you have anything you want to talk about? You've got it. So is there anything you'd like us to address or to bring up?
One of the things I would like to address is the attitude in the Bigfoot community and the cryptid community in general. It seems like with the advent of social media, we have just a plethora of experts, I'm doing quotation fingers, on this stuff, and people get really ugly on all of these social media sites and things. And we have all these experts that know things that nobody else knows. And, this is a fact. And if you go on there and this is my theory, you've got 100 people cussing you out, bad-mouthing you, telling you you're an idiot, things like that. I really think we, as the cryptid community, should police ourselves better. We will never be taken seriously as long as we are our own worst enemy. No true scientists want to attach themselves to us. Even Dr. Meldrum recently wrote a op-ed, or whatever you want to call it, about citizen scientists. And it was almost kind of, in my reading of it, a put down a little bit. But, I wear the badge quite proudly of citizen scientist. I do have a collegiate background in the study of wildlife. I have over 40 years of on the ground in the woods studying firsthand wildlife. So when I say things, yes, I'm a citizen and I am a scientist. No, I don't have a lab coat. I don't work in a laboratory and do DNA and things like that. There are people out there that are very good at doing that. But we need to not allow our community to get in such a state that we have 10,000 social media groups about different creatures and cryptozoology and things like that, and it's full of really mean-spirited people. I think that those people need to be basically shunned in a way, if we can. I think we can have intellectual conversations with ourselves and with scientists about the possibility of these creatures being proven and all of that without the nastiness. And I know that myself, Lyle Blackburn, Ken Gerhard, Nick Redfern, all of these people, we all sit down and talk, and they're at a table looking at one another at times. There's never a nasty word thrown around, ever. We never, even if we listen and we don't agree with what the other one has to say, we're like, okay, I really don't agree with that, but okay. And we never walk away mad, and we never feel like the other person belittled each other. And I think we should have some sort in the future of an established cryptozoological, for lack of a better word, college of peers that are accepted, that are acknowledged as being some of the forerunners in the field, and, maybe have some sort of a council or whatever that we can say, okay, they are the end all be all. Their final word is the final word on it, so that we can get away from all of these guys that have never done anything but watch TV shows, and now they claim to be an expert. I would probably end there.
Hey, first off, what you said was extremely valid. It was really
spot
just
on.
Yeah, it was just
spot on.
It was perfect. I'm going to go out on a limb and speculate. I'm not an expert, so therefore I can do that. Sometimes the squeaky wheel is the one that needs the oil. And when you see people who just vehemently oppose someone for something they're saying, and all, there usually is reason. I have personally seen this happen to the community where someone will say something, and then someone else or a group of people will challenge it because it may or may not confirm with what these other people have been saying. And I think part of what causes all of the animosity is because I think half the people out there are convinced that everyone else is hoaxing, essentially, or that there's a very good chance of it. And so when they disagree with something, I think some people are actually just really thinking, okay, this person is trying to pull a fast one. And so they don't want to say it out loud. But that, I think, I feel like sometimes maybe that's their motivation. And it just makes the whole community dysfunctional. We have never, I don't believe in a community, been able to police ourselves effectively where we can deal with either a hoax or someone just making a claim that is too good to be true. I mean, because you'll get it. You know, if someone, it's as simple as, hey, I saw Bigfoot cross the road. Well, you've got someone else here that's never seen Bigfoot, and they're going to say, no, you didn't, because it's not in their experience either. And we need to work on that.
That's what Cryptid Connection's lot about.
That was part of what our thing was.
An open forum where people can express their experiences and their theories and thoughts
without getting chewed out.
Absolutely.
And I've backed off a bunch in the past year. 2 years ago, I was just in the forefront. I was out there talking to everybody I could. I was on forums. I was on groups, in there talking and trying to educate from what I knew, my experiences, my thoughts, things like that, from a rational point of view. And every single time I did so, I found I was under attack. And it just got to the point where, a few months ago, I just put a thing out and said, I'm done. I'm not going to be commenting in groups anymore. I'm not going to go into people's chat rooms and whatever they're doing and try to talk to anyone on an intellectual level about any of this, because of the personal attacks and the vendettas that certain groups and certain people have against an individual. Mm-hmm. And I would get attacked. I mean, just viciously attacked and get called names, and people would, call me, fatty and all this kind of stuff. I'm a big guy. And it would get turned into a personal name calling session. And I just got so tired of it that it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to keep doing my research. I'm going to keep going out here and doing what I'm doing. And it's because I like doing it and I enjoy doing it. But as far as me trying to spread my knowledge and things, I'm going to stick to the people that enjoy listening to what I have to say and that think that what I have to say is worth listening to. And I really appreciate all of those people. I really appreciate you guys and everybody that thinks that anything I have to say is worth listening to.
Well, heck, I've always thought you were worth listening to.
Everybody gets a certain level of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you'll notice, you don't see guys like my good friends. I keep bringing them up. Ken and Lyle and all of those. You never see them in any chat rooms or any groups on Facebook talking, other than their own pages, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You've got people that you could say the sky was purple and they would believe you no matter what. And then you have people that you could tell them it's raining while they're standing in the middle of a thunderstorm, and they'd call you a big fat liar.
Well, a lot of it has to do, too, with just the nature of the internet and social media. I mean, people, for some reason, get in front of a keyboard, and it brings out the worst in them in so many ways. And in our community, I've seen a lot of people, like you said, that just, they almost, I don't want to call them trolls, but they get vicious. They infight. A lot of that I've also noticed is people aren't getting together. I'm trying to think. We had a lot of people at Footstock last year.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone agreed.
Yeah.
But I don't know of anybody that's at Footstock or that attended it last year that gets vicious with each other. I think there is something about the getting together and actually physically knowing the person that is behind that computer screen that makes you more civil.
Absolutely.
But if you're just a name on the screen and you have that anonymity and you don't actually ever have to deal with this person, then, you know, the ugly side of you comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if that's all you are, the cryptid world does not need you. Because you're just trolling. That is a troll. Just point blank.
I will give this example. I had a gentleman present me with a plaster cast of a track. And it was supposed to be the track of a large cat. The claws on the track were extended. The only cat that walks with an extended claw and does not have retractable claws is a cheetah, as far as I'm aware of. We do not have cheetahs running loose in Texas.
No.
Maybe, I don't know, but I've never seen one, never even heard of one
Seen one. Yeah.
being reported. And whenever I looked at the track and I told the gentleman, I said, that's not a cat. Immediately got upset with me, told me that he had shown it to name some really high profile names, and they said that it was a cat. Now, some of these high profile names I've worked with for over 10 years in the wildlife industry. Mm-hmm. And wildlife is doing everything. And they have come to me to identify a lot of tracks. And I know them very well. And I know that they would not recognize a track with the claws extended like that as a feline track. I finally just had to walk away from the gentleman because, you know, in my view, there's no precedent in the animal kingdom for a cat other than a cheetah that walks with its claws extended. Cougars don't do it. Bobcats don't do it, which those are the only two known cats running wild in the Texas wood. Now, you will find the, I know, and I think it was South Texas, we did have some known jaguars that had been filmed in that. And in Arizona, there's been some known jaguars to have been filmed. But they don't even travel with an extended claw. Their claws are retractable. So, you know, it's one of those things where sometimes you just have to walk away. And, you know, people that have no expertise in a subject at all, when you tell them, we talked about this earlier, kind of, when you tell somebody what they don't want to hear, they get ugly.
Yeah, everybody wants validation of what they say. It's
Human
hard.
nature.
Yeah, it's hard to hear, oh, I'm wrong?
Yeah.
You know, it's true. You know, we're all wrong all the time.
Last year at Footstock, I gave a presentation, and in it I mentioned the red wolves and how they had numerous vocalizations, and this gentleman saw me later and confronted me saying that he had talked to a red wolf expert and that this person had told him that red wolves had one vocalization and one only. And I told him, I said, well, that's not true. It takes a simple go on YouTube and look up red wolves. And when you go on there, you will hear them they have videos with sound of them making a dozen different vocalizations on the videos. So, you know, it's one of those things where I kind of find that people go out of their way to try to get a gotcha moment on me when it comes to wildlife. And I'm not saying I'm never wrong, because I am wrong. I have been wrong. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, if I give a presentation, I've researched what I'm talking about to the nth degree. and I'm not gonna say something up there that is somebody's gonna just easily disprove me. And the cat track, and then the red wolves. It just always seems like we were talking about earlier about people trying to get in our community trying to get you, and it's always like there's always somebody trying to get me. As far as I proved you wrong, and I don't get it. I mean I understand fact checking what I say. I don't have a problem with that at all. But sometimes it's the way people approach you and say, "Hi, I got you."
Jeff, we have one question that we've just become a kind of a tradition. What monster's under your bed or in your closet?
What monsters were in my closet?
Whichever one creeps you out.
My older sister, did not read me the fairy tales and bedtime stories of normal. She read Stephen King Night Shift to me. And in that collection of short stories, there was a boogeyman in the closet. And my entire life, I could never, and to this day, I cannot sleep in a room that a closet door is open. That door has to be closed. So Stephen King's Boogeyman from Night Shift is the monster in my closet.
I love it.
You and Jennifer have something in common.
You can't do that.
She can't sleep with a closet door open. It has to be shut.
Tight.
100%. Yes.
I don't like
my
closets.
goodness.
I had growing up, my sister had an iguana, and that thing would escape. And I don't know how it got in my closet, because my closet door is always closed. I've always grown up doing that. Wake up in the morning, open my closet door, and there that thing would be. And it would hiss. So my closet door always stays closed, because I don't want a monster iguana hissing at me anymore. I'm done. I completely understand the closet monster thing.
Oh, Lordy.
Been an awesome guest, Jeff. We thank you very much
Yes,
for appearing
Thank
here.
y'all. Y'all have been awesome hosts.
Well, we're trying to be. Like I said, we're trying to be something different and not the normal, just, scare the bejesus out of you, encounter show. We want to know what people are out there and what they're really like.
Yep.
And you did do that. We appreciate you opening up and sharing that, because I know you get asked stuff all the time about what your opinion is or what you think this is and that.
We like behind the scenes.
Yeah. And you opened up, especially early on.
I get pictures sent to me. Look at this Bigfoot. Look at this Bigfoot. I got a picture of Bigfoot, and it's a dark blob, blurry something in the middle of the screen. And I'm like, okay, you got a picture of something, but I can't tell you that was a picture of Bigfoot. Oh, well, you're a jerk. Sorry.
I've run into that.
And I've got dozens of blob squatch pictures of my own. Never shown them. I showed one to Cliff Barrickman whenever we were doing Finding Bigfoot. Showed it to him, and that was it. That's the only person I've ever shown any of my blob squatch pictures to, because they're blob squatch pictures. Mm-hmm. To me, anybody that shows a blob squatch picture is not a serious researcher, because it would be just like if I said, boy, I got a picture of a 30-point buck deer on my camera, but I show you a picture that's so blurry you can't even tell if it's a deer, and want you to believe that it's a picture of a 30-point buck.
I'm kind of right there with you. I don't like blob squatch pictures. I've always been of the opinion that if it requires a circle, it doesn't need to be seen.
I don't even look. When people send me pictures that have circles drawn around things, red, yellow circles drawn, I automatically discount them. I say, sorry. And if they send me trail cam photos, I want the photos before and after their trail cam photo. I don't want just that one picture, because I use trail cams every day. And I know that they take a series of pictures. They don't just take one picture and then quit.
That's very logical. Everybody should take up that technique, I think.
The
series versus just the one.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to ask you a question while I've got you here. But I think this is relevant.
Final question.
You work with game cams a lot.
Yeah.
I have had a pet theory that I've been thinking about, and I've spoken to 2 or 3 people about it, and to me it makes sense. But I want your opinion to know what you think. Most trail cams are using a PIR sensor, a passive infrared sensor. And most game cams are, those sensors are calibrated to the body mass of a small deer or maybe a small hog, ideally. Because, there has to be such a temperature variation change in the sensor's field of view in order for it to trigger and, cause the game cam to operate. And then people always talk about, well, you never get game cams of a Sasquatch. And it occurred to me that if we're talking a larger animal, 6, 7, 8 foot, maybe, 3.5 to 4 feet wide, that makes it darn near the largest thing in the woods. I'm wondering if they're triggering them because their body mass is large enough that that sensor is sensing it outside of camera range. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
And then once it triggers, it's flashed, it's gone off, and then the animal knows, oh, well, it's there, more than likely. In fact, I've got a thing on a review, an equipment review on Cryptid Connection that I just posted up recently of a night vision camera. And in the review, this gentleman was actually filming. He was testing to see how a game camera would be picked up by this night vision camera. And so he's got a sideways view of it, and he goes up and he reaches out in front and he triggers his camera, and we're probably 50 yards away from the game cam. And it shines across the screen. That thing's going out 100 feet. It's a huge, bright light. It looks like a spotlight while for the second or so that this thing is on. And if you think about it, there's a possibility that these animals may be able to see a little bit farther into the infrared than we are. And I think that's a safe assumption only because it seems like they're a night adapted animal. They can navigate at night fairly well, it seems. And most other animals that have good night vision tend to be able to pick up a little bit more in the infrared and everything. Am I correct about that?
To an extent, my research has led me more down the path of there are animals in the animal kingdom who can sense the bioelectric field. The platypus that we talked about earlier is one of them. Sharks can sense the electrical fields. And there are several other animals in the animal kingdom that have the ability to sense an electrical field. So if you think about something like a Bigfoot, you give it an ability that exists already in the animal kingdom. It's not fantasy. It exists. Then they would be easily capable of avoiding cameras. If they could sense that those cameras, the batteries, everything in those cameras, they're the IRs, everything are putting off an electrical field.
Right.
There was a study recently done with wolves and coyotes. And in the coyote, out of X amount of months that these game cameras were up, there was never one alpha male coyote pictured on the trail cam. There were subordinates, there were females, there were other coyotes that were captured, but never an alpha male. The alpha males were witnessed to avoid walking in front of the cameras. Now, you tell me how a coyote could sense that those cameras were there.
Ooh.
If they don't possess some sort of a sensory ability to sense that camera, the electromagnetic field or whatever's going on with that camera. They have to be able to sense it in order to avoid it.
Okay, Jeff, I've got an obvious question, and I'm hoping you can explain it to me. How can they differentiate and tell which was an alpha male, if they and knowing that it wasn't viewed? I mean, I guess are these captive populations or something like that?
These were packs of coyotes that had been observed for research. So they knew which male was the alpha male and which was subordinates, and the females and everything. So it was a scientific research study that had already been ongoing with those coyotes.
Okay. So that makes sense. If they've been observed, for a long period of time, number of years, then, they're going to know each and every individual as they come about and everything. But I just wanted to make sure that was the case necessarily, because I could just hear somebody coming up and challenging that just right then and there, thinking, "Oh wow, I've busted Jeff."
The good thing is you can actually look that research up. It's not my research. I'm not putting any claim to it. That is actually, if I can find it, I'll send you the link.
Please do.
Yeah, we'd love to put it up with the episode.
Yeah, that would actually be really good. I'm all for having links and everything else, especially on the YouTube version.
That's how I do my Bigfoot research. Is I research known animals to try to discern how an unknown animal might act and react to equipment and things. And people say, "Oh, well, they come around houses all the time." Right. They do. People have them around houses, but we're talking about a creature that's probably been observing that house and the people that live in that house for months, years even. So they would know where a safe place to approach or to sit and watch or whatever. We're not talking about deer or raccoons or something here. We're talking about a creature that does not want to associate with us.
I think a lot of people don't think about that. I think a lot of them want to assume a little bit more wild, like a deer or things like that. This thing is as smart as you and I.
Opinions and my theories. Mm-hmm. We are talking about an animal, flesh and blood, not some magical Harry Potter creature. We're talking about a flesh and blood creature that is every bit as intelligent as we are.
Yes.
But has used 100% of that intelligence to learn how to hunt, to learn how to survive, and to learn how to avoid and evade mankind. I've used this as an example with people. I've deer hunted my entire life, and you can talk to any deer hunter that has good experience and a lot of experience. You've been sitting in a deer stand and you look to the left, there's nothing. You look to the right, there's nothing. You look back to the left, and all of a sudden there's a deer standing there 100 yards out into a field that wasn't there 5 seconds ago. Somehow that deer was in that field whenever you looked 5 seconds before, but you didn't see it. Because that deer knows how to use the terrain and the shadows and everything else, the vegetation, to remain, especially old, wary bucks, that have been around a long, long time. They've learned how to use that stuff. And the only time you get a shot at these old, big, wary bucks is during the rut, whenever they kind of lose their head because they're trying to breed. And so I'll say, if you look at an animal that's as smart as us, not a deer, but an animal that's as smart as we are, that animal would be able to walk and move and utilize its terrain and not be seen. We train our military to do the same thing. We train snipers and special forces and everything to use terrain and vegetation to remain invisible. So it wouldn't be beyond the realm of belief that these creatures can too. And when people say they go invisible, well, there's no precedent in the animal kingdom of a hair-covered mammalian creature that can go invisible. I think there's a couple of types of, what are they, cuttlefish. They can make their skin more translucent, but they can't disappear.
No, they camouflage.
They can just, but you take a hair-covered mammal, there's no precedent anywhere in the animal kingdom of an animal that can make its hair follicles. If you've got brown hair, you've got brown hair. You can't make that brown hair disappear. Even if you could make your skin translucent, well, you can't make your bones translucent. We're talking about animals in the animal kingdom that can do this, that have no bone structure. So you can't tell me, I just can't wrap my mind around a Bigfoot creature being able to make itself go translucent or invisible. There's nothing. And people say, well, then there's inner dimensions and other dimensions, and they can go between dimensions. And I'm like, I can't go there. Now, once we prove they are flesh and blood, once we prove they're real and they're here and we're studying them, if you come up to me and say, look what we found, they're able to do this, well, that was unprecedented in the animal kingdom, and wow, look at this amazing discovery. We can go there. But we can't go there yet, because it's like when Henry Ford invented the Model A. No one could have ever said in 80 years, 90 years, there will be a Ford Mustang that can go 236 miles per hour. Because at that point in time, we didn't even have a car that could go 30 miles per hour. The car that could go 30 miles per hour had to be invented and discovered and everything before the car that could go 60 miles an hour, the car that could go 80, the car that could go 100, and so forth and so on. You could not put or even tell someone that the Corvette or any of these cars that are just fast beyond belief was going to ever exist, because there was no precedent for it.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
And that's the mind of Jeff in a nutshell, guys.
All right. Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight with you. We're going to let you go, buddy. You go on and have a normal
guys,
life.
I've enjoyed this conversation, and we will talk more off the air. Just chat.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Jeff.
All righty.
Good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Y'all have a great evening.
Guests of Cryptid Connection are all members of the Cryptid Connection website. Join the community, a safe, secure, and private place for all your paranormal and cryptid pursuits.
Every cowboy, he always misses when he's aiming at the target in his head. And every broken man finds his idle hands grasping at tomorrow's promised land. And I've been thinking about running, and I'll get out on the town just for myself. And that's when I saw her, and she looked right through me. And when I said I do that day, I really do. 'Cause every cowboy, he always misses his shot when he's aiming at the target in his head. And every broken man finds his idle hands grasping at tomorrow's promised land. And I've been thinking about riding, and when I get the first draft back with no red ink, but I've been thinking the time that I have wasted sitting here. 'Cause I've been thinking that all this thinking is the thing that keeps me further from myself.
The music and soundtrack for the opening is from Epic Film Score by Alex Kaskin. The closing credits are Every Cowboy by Cellophane Sam.